Happy Independence Day, my fellow Filipinos. And no, I've decided not to change the language of my channel and videos. It's going to stay in English. Just because I speak English does not mean I'm not Filipino. Let's get that out of the way first. Today, I will introduce to you all, both Filipinos and foreigners alike, a new idea for a war game I've come up with. It is similar to the upcoming tabletop war game Trench Crusade, and even shares a similar name, which is Island Crusade. However, it will still be different in a lot of ways, starting with its setting. Island Crusade will be taking place around the 2010s and beyond, with the central conflict taking place in the archipelago nation of the Philippines, my homeland, and the rest of Southeast Asia. Again, I know what some of you are thinking. Yes, this is another work of fiction. This is all just essentially make-believe. None of this is true. If, for some reason, you start to take these statements as facts, please seek professional psychiatric help immediately. Now, I'll introduce you to the alternate timeline as well as major or pivotal characters of Island Crusade. In 1995, Ahmad Shah Massoud, one of the major political and military leaders of Afghanistan, was aided by the United Nations in his fight against the Taliban. This resulted in a victory for the esteemed Islamic leader, and, thanks to the assistance of nations from all over the world, the civilian casualties of Kabul had been kept to a bare minimum, and the Taliban completely destroyed and unlikely to ever return. Ahmad Shah Massoud would then go on to become Prime Minister of Afghanistan and lead the country to an era of peace and prosperity. Later that year, however, unknown to the new and nigh legendary Prime Minister of Afghanistan, a group of soldiers recovered an ancient, mysterious, and rather creepy-looking book in the Kush Mountains. Not knowing what to do with it, one of the soldiers, a Russian by the name of Peter Sokolov, decides to bring the book with him on his travels. Little did he know of the horrible misfortunes that the book would cause him over the years. Unknown to Peter Sokolov, the book he and the other soldiers discovered was an ancient artifact that predated ancient Egypt. It came from a lost and thankfully forgotten ancient civilization where Afghanistan now stands. Of course, since he didn't know any better and couldn't read it since he had no way to translate its contents, he traveled the world suffering various misadventures as time went on. In 1997, Peter Sokolov, now broke, blind, and missing an arm and a leg, sold the mysterious book to a pastor of questionable morals in the Philippines by the name of Marcelo Magno. It wouldn't be until later, though, that the book would be mentioned again, as Reverend Magno kept it as a part of his private collection. Much like Peter Sokolov, Marcelo Magno began to suffer misfortune after misfortune. The truth of the matter was that Marcelo Magno was simply the third cult leader of a fraudulent faith that had existed since 1902. Called the Hands of God, or Hogs to the people who actually knew about them, the denomination claimed to be an offshoot of Christianity and expounded on how they followed the guiding hands of God. This, despite the fact that they were more about gathering power, wealth, and influence than they were about actually guiding or helping anyone. Marcelo Magno was no different from the cult leaders who preceded him, being nothing more than a scammer who knew a few Bible verses that he could corrupt and twist for his own ends. He regularly swindled his followers of their belongings and property, and had dissidents to his faith beaten and often killed. This doesn't even include his ties to organized crime, such as his involvement in human trafficking and slavery of women and children. Reverend Magno had tried to spread his cult to other countries, with often lackluster and sometimes even disastrous results. Having the strange book with him certainly did not help. In 2004, with a sizable cult at his beck and call, Marcelo Magno felt confident enough to run for president of the Philippines. After all, since he couldn't gain much traction in other nations, he settled simply on ruling his homeland. However, this too would fall through, as not everyone was interested in supporting the Hogs, as some put it. For one thing, not many liked the constant doomsday fear-mongering the hands of God perpetuated. While the Hogs hired many celebrities, including well-known actors, singers, and dancers, none were keen to their brand of entertainment and were able to see through their deceptions. In the end, Marcelo Magno won a measly 2.5% of the voting population. Apparently, it seemed that a large number of Hands of God members didn't even vote for their leader, even if Magno himself encouraged block voting and spouted various threats against those who would not vote for him, claiming that a vote against him was a vote against God himself. Unable to accept his defeat, it was believed that Marcelo Magno lost his mind and turned to powers he didn't really understand. According to a family member, whose name we won't mention here, he went into his toilet and the ancient book, probably intending to use the pages of the latter as toilet paper. However, upon emerging from the bathroom after 7 days, Marcelo Magno became a different man. He swore revenge against the Philippines and the world for rejecting him. He said that he would enact a ritual that would curse the earth itself and bring forth demons from hell to conquer it and devour its people. He said many things that disturbed and terrified his own family and followers, that a lot of them actually left. Unfortunately, Magno still had some influence over the government and used what he had to blackmail the President of the Philippines and most generals of the armed forces of the Philippines to do his bidding. In the end, he was able to enact the ritual he had promised. This would go on to disturb billions of people across the globe and change the world forever. Called by some as the Festival of Carnage, the Feast of Abomination, and the Blood Party, Marcelo Magno's ritual involved the ritual killing of 666,666 children in the most brutal ways possible. 111,111 would be burned alive at stakes. Another 111,111 were drowned beneath a deep lake. 111,111 more would be thrown from a high place atop a specially made structure. An additional 111,111 would be buried alive. Then 111,111 would be killed via poison in a sealed room. And the last 111,111 would be slain through violence with various spears, swords, axes, and knives. They nearly succeeded, if not for a brave few who made an effort to disrupt their ritual. They were a diverse lot, and most did not even know one another, but they were united in their views that Pastor Magno's intentions were atrocious and that he had to be stopped one way or another. While their achievements were fairly small and most of them fell in the attempt, they were hailed as heroes throughout the world for their brave actions. At the end, thanks to the bravery of the individuals who disrupted the ritual, 300 of the children were successfully rescued, and the hands of God only managed to sacrifice 666,333 for their ends. This botched their ritual in a big way, preventing them from overwhelming the world with evil. The Hogs originally intended to summon 6 unfathomably evil entities from 6 abyssal dimensions, but due to their ritual being interrupted, only 5 were brought forth to the earth. Despite the Festival of Carnage being thwarted, however, it was not enough to hold back the tidal wave of evil that came forth, and the 5 terrible ungods that came through. These towering and mind-shattering entities seemed to cause reality itself to wobble as they strolled through the rubble and ruins that were once the cities of the Philippines. The very sight of them caused the minds of those who saw them to break and begin worshipping them as twisted deities. The 5 dreadful non-divines are as follows. There is Hak, an entity associated most with fire, or, to be more specific, destructive and uncontrollable fire like that of wildfire. He is also connected to emotions of undisciplined anger and unprovoked rage. All things catch fire where he walks, and his followers seek to spread his destructive and all-consuming flame wherever they go. At the moment, he and his forces directly besiege Southeast Asia, and he has left much of the eastern half of China a burning ruin, while his followers attempt to take Indonesia, Australia, and New Zealand. A monstrous being known as Zorl now haunts the waters of the world, making it largely unsafe to drink unless treated or consecrated. He is also associated with apathy and self-deception, since things from both above and below the water don't care about one another usually, even though they can actually affect each other in a big way. Even the rain itself, or even water in a glass, can be contaminated by his touch, if not cleansed properly, and woe betide those who drink water tainted by the tyrant of the depths. High above, the fake goddess Quish hovers over the earth, controlling the very wind and lightning to do her bidding. A self-righteous being with a titanic ego to match, she is most associated with self-righteousness, narcissism, and feigned victimhood. Many, if not all of her befuddled followers share her qualities. Her great power even allows her to maintain great cities in the sky, but it is notable that while these might seem like paradises for the people looking at them from below, they are every bit as dystopian, horrific, and tyrannical as the other demon-infested cities of the world today. In tunnels deep beneath the earth, a nauseating and repulsive entity known as Yug lurks, infecting all around her with a soft, equally disgusting fungus-like disease that spreads quickly and aggressively. A creature filled with nothing but malice and bitterness, Yug and her followers seek to spread her disfiguring illness wherever they go, believing that if they are ugly and miserable, then everyone should be as ugly and miserable as they are. As of the moment, Yug's forces have wormed their way into the Americas and have found some degree of success in Chile, but still face heavy resistance in some parts of the country. People have a right to fear the dark again, as Vrel has turned the very shadows and the whispers of the long dead against mankind. Also associated with self-delusion of the past, many of his followers choose to serve him in the misguided belief that he can bring their dead loved ones back to life. He has found footing in the eastern half of North America and menaces Canada, the United States, and Mexico constantly.